Today, we're talking about the key takeaways from training camp for the Chicago Bulls as they get set for preseason play. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we are talking about the key takeaways from training camp for the Chicago Bulls as they get set for preseason play. And so I wanted to go ahead and start with the things that we should be excited to see in training camp. And hopefully these things do really carry on into the season, because I think that this is going to be huge for the Chicago Bulls. And so I have three major themes, and then we're going to talk about some individual storylines along with just really some things that could be a surprise this season for the Chicago Bulls. And so starting with the three major themes that we should be excited to see. Number one, defense and physicality. This is something that head coach Billy Donovan has talked about, along with just really all the players that we saw in the pressers during training camp. They all talked about defense and they talked about physicality. And I think that if this team can take that step on defense, that is going to be huge, because number one, I think that this team will get some more wins. Number two, I think that the team will also really shock the rest of the NBA if they're able to lock in on the defensive side of the ball. And then number three, what I'm most excited about is you're talking about team identity. And so we do want to see this team hopefully get back to competing for championships, but you have to have a defensive identity. And so I love the fact that this team is coming in and they're focused on this. And I want to see if this team is going to step up to the challenge, just like they were challenged last season to play, a different style on offense. I think that this team is going to respond on defense, and I cannot wait to see what they look like in preseason play, and hopefully they can carry that into the season. And then the next major theme that I think we should be excited for with this team is going to be the offense, and can the offense take another step forward? And so I know Billy Donovan talked about maximizing possessions, and then also too, he talked about creating some more possessions. But I think, when you look at the offense and just like maximizing those possessions, I think that this offense can take another step forward this season by simply cutting down the turnovers. And then when they get into the half court sets and things like that, really being able to execute. And so I know one of the things that we talked about constantly last year was just recognizing that if you have Vooch down low and it's a mismatch, get him the basketball. And so those little things like that will help this team, but also too, just not going for the home run ball. And so just settling in on offense and just knowing that you don't have to just shoot threes. Like, you can still get to the paint. You can move off of off-ball screens and things like that. You can get some easy offense and still play fast. And then also too, just really put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses and things like that. And so hopefully this is something that this team can take a step forward with. I think that this would be huge as far as, again, just building on your team identity, and then also too, just taking a major step forward and just really shocking the NBA this season. And then next, rotations. I think that is really going to be interesting, and I'm just super excited to see this, especially when Billy Donovan was talking about, going with a deeper rotation, and just really why you see this in playoff basketball more. And then when he was talking about possibly running like double bigs out there, and so suggesting that maybe we could possibly see, a situation where Vooch is out there with maybe Zach Collins, or you maybe see Jalen Smith and Zach Collins out there. Like, I would love to see that, because I feel like that if this team can get comfortable playing with two centers, there's the possibility that you can create some mismatches. And so I think that would be Coach Billy Donovan really getting into his bag. And so super excited to see if this translates in preseason play and if this team can carry those things into the season, I think that we could see something special here. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and jump into some individual storylines here based off what we, heard from these players and their pressers and things like that. And so wanted to start with the big three. And the first player that I wanted to talk about was Josh Giddey. And so I think that it was a great takeaway to see that Josh Giddey, came in and he said that this was the place that he wanted to be. He understood negotiations and things like that. And I just think that this team needs that type of energy to start off because they want to pick up where they left off a season ago. And so the fact that the negotiations went well, I think that that's huge for this team. And I think that it really puts them off to a good start. And so I thought that that was key. And then the next thing too, with Josh Giddey talking about wanting to be more of a leader, I definitely want to see that. There's no Zach LaVine out there this season. And so he's definitely going to have the keys to the offense. And a lot of people want to see him pick up where he left off. And so I think that the great thing about Josh Giddey is that once he says it, he definitely holds himself accountable. And so let's see if he can step up as the leader. And then what I absolutely loved with what he had to say was talking about improving on the defense and really talking about just, how this team is going to have to do it by committee. But I loved when he was like, look, I definitely get some more energy out there by facing off against the other team's primary scorer. And so I want to see if Josh Giddey is going to take another step just on defense, because that would be huge for this team. And so, I think that that was one of the key takeaways out of that. Next, with Modest Buzelis, look, if you looked at Modest Buzelis and his presser, I mean, you absolutely had to get pumped. If you're a Bulls fan and you looked at Modest Buzelis and his presser, you just get excited. This is a guy talking about he wants to be the most improved player. I love that. And then when asked about like just what is going to stand out the most, he talked about defense. I love that. I love the fact that he is talking about being a defensive player for this team and not really worried about the offense. And so the next thing that I loved about him is just talking about wanting to go out and win. Like he wants to win. I love that. And win a championship. He feels like that is the benchmark. And so I love that mentality. And this kind of ties into really the theme so far in this video. We're talking about identity. You must have an identity if you want to win championships. And that is the right mind or the right mindset for just a team that is trying to get to the next level. You want to have that type of identity. And so the next thing, talking about Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu. And so what I love about them is just they're coming in so focused and they're not really worried about the contract situation. I'm not worried about Coby White and the calf strain. I think that this is something that they're managing well. He's doing the light shooting and stuff like that, and they're going to take it slowly with him, and they should. Like, a calf injury is not anything to play with. And I love the fact that Ayo has come in, and when asked about like his role, he's like, look, I am confident in my skills, and he feels like that he can help this team regardless. And I think that he has a lot to prove. And to me, Ayo Dosunmu and the energy that he's going to bring on the defensive side of the ball and just his ability to be a real two-way player for this team, I think that he's going to be a very big surprise for this team. In fact, I have him down as a surprise player this year. And so Ayo Dosunmu, Coby White, I love the focus here. And then next, going into Billy Donovan, like Billy Donovan, I think with the things that he's talking about, I think it's time that we give Billy Donovan some credit here because, number one, just looking at what he was talking about last season with the offense and just needing to play fast. And he said his quote of, if we run, we have fun. And that's exactly what this team did. And so something tells me that when Billy Donovan is saying, hey, we're going to do this, the players are responding. And I think that if the players respond and they come out and they play defense and they have this physicality and this mindset like this, like it is certainly time to give Billy Donovan a lot of credit here. And I just love the fact that he's going to be willing to just really dig into the rotations a little bit more. And so I know he's talked about it and we still have to see it, but I love the fact that he is saying these things. And then also, too, I talked about the quote and I didn't say it all the way when he was talking about just really you can't pick and choose like, what you want to do as far as going out there and winning. And so just got a chance to look at the entire quote here. And so I'll read it out, but it says that you can't pick and choose things you want to do and not want to do, and then say you want to win. And he says that it's not a buffet. Rules are the rules. Winning takes what it takes, and you got to be willing to do it. We have taken more charges in the last 2 days of practice than we have in the last 82 games. I love that quote, and I love the fact that the team is out there putting it on the line and they are taking charges and things like that. And so that is a huge takeaway from what Billy Donovan had to say. Next, I wanted to jump into just really surprise players for us. And so the first player I think is going to be Isaac Okoro because, even though Billy Donovan hasn't talked about who's going to start as small forward, but getting Isaac Okoro over and knowing that we know that Isaac Okoro is a defender, it kind of tips the cap, I think, a little bit to what the Bulls might want to do here as far as starting. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think that Isaac Okoro is going to be in the lineup. I think that he is, and I think he's going to be a surprise player because of that. Because one of the things that Billy Donovan does talk about with him is, yes, the defense, but he talked about him improving as a three-point shooter in the corner, which suggests that I think that they are going to find ways to get him into situations where he can be successful on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that Isaac Okoro is going to have a chance to really show that he can impact winning. And I think that he is really coming in with a chip on his shoulder. And so he's like my first surprise player of the year. And then next, when we're talking about surprise players, I've already talked about it before with Ayo Dosunmu. Something tells me his energy, him being locked in, not dealing with the shoulder, and just also, too, just not knowing what we're going to get from Patrick Williams on the defensive side of the ball. I think just the fact that he's willing to lock in defensively, he's going to be important to the Chicago Bulls because of that. But I also think that he is going to surprise you on the offensive end of the ball as well, because really he didn't get a chance to step in to the offense as much and really find his rhythm because of the injury. And so I think that now he's going to get a chance, to get into this offense, find his rhythm. And I think he has a chance to have a big year. And then next, players that could be just really, just a surprise, maybe a breakout for us this year. And I think certainly would help this team just really make some noise here in the NBA. I got to go with the rookie here, Noa Essengue. And so I'm really counting on the fact that Noa Essengue can take the similar type of path as Modest Buzelis. I would absolutely love to see that. If we see those type of flashes, yes, it's tough because you have to stick in there and be patient, because I know it was tough last season looking at Modest Buzelis and we would see the flashes and we wanted more. But if it results in Noa Essengue maybe becoming a starter, I would love to see that. I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but if he could show that he could be a starter this early on and just being this young, I think that this would be a great sign for the Chicago Bulls. Heck, even if he's not a starter and he becomes a contributor for this team in year one, I think that that would be huge. And they really don't have a plan for him. They did not talk about, putting him out there to the Windy City Bulls and things like that. I think that it is going to be in the plan, but so far they haven't talked about that, which suggests that Noa Essengue is going to have a chance this preseason to show that perhaps he should be out there with the main club really for the vast majority of the time. So let's see how this goes. But I have him down as a outside surprise player for us. And then next, you have to go with Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips. I think that they got chances last season. I think that Julian Phillips can continue to take that step forward. He was already, ahead of Patrick Williams. I think that we'll get a chance to see if he's taken a step forward offensively. And then I just loved what we saw from Dalen Terry as far as just his interview on CHGO podcast. I was getting fired up just listening to it. It sounds like he is super committed. We've heard that he's worked with Steve Nash and everything else. We know that he works with DeMar DeRozan. And so he's putting in a ton of work. And I really want to see it pay off for him. And so hopefully, those players are able to take a step forward. So those are my surprise players here for us. And then lastly, the biggest question mark coming in is just going to be going back to the rotations again. Just is Billy Donovan going to be willing to go deep into the rotations? And what exactly are we going to see with our starters here? And so let's see if we do see Jalen Smith get a chance this season, because I do want to see some more of him. I do want to see some more, double center lineups out there. And I am interested to see what he's going to do with the starting small forward position. And so I think that is going to be the key for the Chicago Bulls taking the step forward, because look, if you've always done if you continue to do what you've always done, you're going to continue to get what you've always gotten. And you have to ask yourself, is that enough? And it really hasn't been enough with this team, because the play-in situation is not enough. We want to see some more from this team. So you got to do something different. So anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.